So, PTR changes. 4th in Season 2 dungeon continues on PTR today. The test period starts, this next part's a lie. Test period starts on Tuesday whenever we take down the PTR and bring it back up. And ends on Tuesday, January 21st. Same thing, when we take it down and bring it back up. Please note the test period may be adjusted in the event of technical difficulties. This week, testing is focused on Season 2 War Within dungeons, Priory of the Sacred Flame, Darkflame Cleft, Cinderbrew Meadery, and the Rookery. We've recently been focused on making adjustments to 2 parts of the Mythic Plus experience in Season 2 of the War Within. I do want to point out, so everybody, obviously Mythic Plus Season 1 has been a huge topic of discussion. Everybody and their dog has a solution to how to fix it. Every content creator on the planet has a video that says Mythic Plus is dead and here's why, and Mythic Plus can only be fixed if you implement this one change. Most of those people don't actually know. They're just saying what things are impacting them directly. But this isn't saying this is all we're looking at. It says recently we've been focused on making adjustments to 2 parts of the Mythic Plus experience. It doesn't say we're only going to make adjustments to these 2 parts. It's saying these are the 2 we're looking at right now. So please, if you're out there and you're somebody who is a borderline doomer, you don't need to doom over this. So then it says, first, we'd like to slow the pace of combat to allow for more coordination when groups are faced with dangerous casters. I love this change. In our push group and in our key group that we do on Mondays, which is sort of like a more learning-based dungeon running, one of the things that's really important is being able to call and direct interrupts. By slowing the cast times, so here we've generally increased the cast times of more dangerous spells and then removed, simplified, or slowed the casts of others. This means that you will be able to take the time to say, Dan, kick star. North, I need you to kick X, So instead of having so much emphasis on pre-planning ahead of time what to kick, you'll be able to more in the moment make those calls, which makes things a little bit easier. And also, I think it allows for that learning curve to be a bit better because it gives people time to register. This cast is happening. I have an interrupt available. I'm going to kick that. And it's not less immediate. That's a good change. That's a net positive. Secondly, we've been reviewing the frequency of tank buster mechanics throughout our dungeons. We'd like to generally reserve this gameplay for more dangerous creatures and dungeon bosses. So we've removed some instances of tank damage that we felt were inappropriate. Again, another positive change, not just because I'm a tank, but I like the idea that those big, hard-hitting moments are reserved for mini-bosses and dungeon bosses. What impact does this have on me? I can be a little more loose with sending defensive cooldowns on trash packs that are bigger trash packs, but I think where this is a better impact is that new tanks going in now won't have as much cognitive load as they do currently. But this is going to allow new tanks to know going into a dungeon, okay, I'm about to pull a mini boss. I'm about to fight Suleiman in the Priory of the Sacred Flame. I know that's a mini boss. I know he's going to have a cast or a hard ability that is going to be the focus of me protecting myself. From a philosophy standpoint, this is good because it lets new tanks go in with a bit more confidence and lets them learn. And this week's test will showcase some of these changes, but we'll continue reviewing data and listening to feedback over the course of the BTR. And again, I want to highlight this. For the pre-doomers and the post-doomers and the doomer-doomers out there, this isn't saying these are all the changes we're making, and this isn't saying everything here is locked in stone and set in. It's saying this is the changes we're making now. This is what you're going to see this week. We're still adjusting. This is why we test. This is what a PTR is for. So pause your angry tweets of Blizzard only changed these 4 things. Mythic Plus is dead. Season 2. I couldn't possibly want to do this less. Hold all those thoughts till we actually get there. What are we looking at for changes? Priory of the Sacred Flame. Now, 11 days ago, there was a Wowhead article that said, hey, here's some data mine changes we found for some of the dungeons. And a lot of those data mine changes were adjustments to percentage of damage done by a lot of these abilities. But we're going to see here in this post that some of these abilities are completely removed. So Priory of the Sacred Flame, if you're going into season 2 and you know nothing, all you need to know is Priory of the Sacred Flame is going to be an absolute banger dungeon for organized groups and a potential nightmare for thugs that have no communication with each other. So just go in with that. Keep that in mind. Ardent Paladin. Consecrate now has a precast visual at 2.75 second cast time. This is huge. This is absolutely huge. In the beta, Consecrate was the biggest concern for everybody because it hits like it used to hit like an absolute truck. Still does hit like a truck because that hasn't been changed. But now you know ahead of time where it's going to be at, and you have almost 3 seconds to get out of it, which is a lifetime. This is a massive positive change for this ability. So Consecrate, net positive. They no longer use Seal of Light's Fury, which was a tank buster. As they said earlier, we're taking that off of some of the characters. Zealous Templar no longer uses Templar Strike, was a tank buster. And this one no longer uses Divine Storm, means that it's a little bit friendlier for melee. They got rid of the AoE that they were using. So now you're a little bit more friendly for melee, and this Consecrate change is also more melee friendly because you're not suddenly alive and then dead. You know, it's not binary. You're a 1 or a 0, alive or dead. My Tim Robbins impression from the movie Antitrust, starring him and Ryan Phillippe. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing. You should definitely check it out. And then Arathi Footman doesn't use Mortal Strike. Again, removed a tank buster from a trash mob. Positive change. Priory of the Sacred Flame, I think I'm locking it in as probably going to be my favorite dungeon next season. But we'll find out this week when we do some testing. Darkflame Cleft. Now, this dungeon has the potential to be extremely troublesome, specifically because of the minecart event. But Blizzard sees that, and they're obviously addressing it. So here we are. Minecart event. The minecart's candle now burns more slowly. This candle burning slower, huge advantage. Because right now it goes out really fast. The light radius increased. This is important because when you're outside of the light radius, you do no damage and no healing. So by increasing the radius, it means you have to be less jammed on top of each other and you have a little more space to work with. And it also means that when this mob explodes, you can get out of it and probably still be in the light. Light radius of candles now has a visual indicator. In the dungeon, there's small candles off to the sides that you run out to, you pick them up, you bring them back, and it refills your cart's candle. They're difficult to see, or obviously some people had issues seeing them. Improving that is a net positive. It's going to be easier to see it. So they, Shuffling Horror no longer uses Shadow Smash, remove the Tank Buster, and then reduce the area effect size of Suffocating Darkness. It's an on-death effect, which is good. So now you have a chance to get out of it and be fine. Positive changes. The minecart event will still probably be the biggest pain point in that dungeon, but all of these changes are working towards making it a more positive experience and having it be less of an issue and less of a sticking point. I'm probably the most excited to test this and see how this feels. I think this is a good solution for it. The candle light burning less fast was a change that I didn't think of. But I think that works to sort of alleviate some of the stress that you're going to have in there. And then Cinderbrew Meadery, tasting room attendance, thirsty duration change from unlimited 20 seconds. This is the mobs that you, in the intermission of the first boss, these 5 mobs spawn. You have to run a beer from the bar to them. While they're in the thirsty mode, they pulsate damage. Currently, it was unlimited, so they would just pulsate that until you give them beer. Now, it's only 20 seconds. So the question is, what does that mean? So after 20 seconds, what I think this means is that after 20 seconds, the intermission is just going to end. They'll pulsate 20 damage 20 seconds, and then the intermission will end. Another possibility that I don't think is the case, because if it was, I think it would be included, is that after the 20 seconds, there's an AoE blast of damage on the group, and it ends up being in a wipe. But I feel like if that was going to be the case, they would list that in here. And I also feel like that is shifting it away from making the dungeon more accessible and towards making it less accessible. So my assumption is, and again, we'll have to test this. We don't know for sure. My assumption is this means they're limiting the intermission to a maximum of 20 seconds, which, if you're getting pelted by 80,000 damage a second by 5 mobs for 20 seconds, you're going to die. This shifts it closer to being like the Mistcaller intermission, where those mobs are pulsating damage until you break the shield, until you give these thirsty patrons their drinks. They're going to be pulsating damage on you. But after 20 seconds, I think it's just going to end and you'll go back into P1 of the boss fight. We'll find out. I'm really excited to see. I'm not excited. I'm interested. This doesn't excite me, but I am interested. That would be weird to be excited by this. I am interested in seeing where that goes. Hobgoblin's Reckless Delivery cooldown increased. These are the ogre-looking dudes who run down the hallway and slam into a wall and do a big AoE damage and a bunch of droplets come out of them. You want to bait that to a close wall. You don't. The farther they run, the more damage they do. So a lot of times on the testing, we would see people standing as we're fighting them, and they would end up running all the way down the hall. Think of it like the purple orbs on the mini boss, and then the final boss, or the second boss, sorry, in Dawnbreaker, that you want to bait so they shoot a long way, because the farther they go, the less damage we take. It's the opposite. The farther these go, the more damage you take. So you want to stand so you're baiting these guys into a wall. The difference is you can't direct them. They choose their running path based on where you're standing at the time of their cast. So you need to be pre-standing between them and a wall or a close object so they only run a short distance. But they've increased the cooldown on this, so this will happen less frequently, which is a good thing. And then the Royal Jelly Purveyor's Honey Volley cooldown increased. I can't remember this mob, but it's a Honey Volley. I imagine this is going to be like Barrage for hunters, but it's going to be honey. And an increase just means it's going to happen less, so that's good. The Rookery, which prior to Priory was my favorite dungeon. It might still be my favorite dungeon in Season 2 because it's just lightning fast, pun intended. Has some changes. Kyrios has an increased hitbox range during Lightning Torrent. That's his intermission phase where he jumps to the middle. The way it was working, melee DPS couldn't hit him in the middle. So now they can. This is good. You want them to be able to hit him. But the hitbox change is only when he's in that phase. So it's not a huge hitbox to allow for any sort of cheesing of mechanics when he's not in that phase. First, Rook Guard no longer uses Crackling Crush. Tank Buster removed. And then Void Cursed Crusher no longer uses Implosion. So this is good. I don't think that Mythic Plus was too difficult this season, but I literally play this game all day long. So I can definitely see Blizzard hearing the community feedback that, hey, some of this is just too much. Dial it back a bit. We don't need such complex pulls on trash packs. And I'm glad that they're listening to that feedback. And I'm glad that they're shifting Mythic Plus to be more accessible, especially in that 1 to 11 range, where you really want people to be able to get in and enjoy themselves and experience it. Because if you log in at 2 to 11 range, if you log into a 2, a 4, and a 6, and you're miserable and you can't beat the dungeon and it's no fun, and all your friends quit playing and all you hear is negative comments, you stop playing it. And if enough people stop playing it, it means no new blood comes in, and the game mode eventually ends up being arena. And nobody wants that. I don't want my solo shuffle. So they need to let it be accessible and be fun. The game is better when people can enjoy it. And these are good changes, I think. Obviously, I'll get into testing. We'll see how it feels. I don't see anything in here that gives me concerns. I'm maybe still curious about the minecart event, see how that plays out. But I think these are good changes. And I hope to see more of this. And I expect we're going to see more of this because, like I said, this doesn't say, hey, we're only adjusting these 2 things. And it doesn't say, hey, this is all the changes you're going to get and you'll like it. It says, hey, this is what we're looking at this week. And they obviously have plans for this stuff because they have Mythic Plus testing planned out for the next 6 weeks.